I would like to discuss the topic of vibrato within a flutist's practice routine and in his or her performance. In my presentation, I would like to answer some common questions regarding vibrato. First, what is vibrato? Vibrato is a slight fluctuation of pitch in a sustained tone. It is desirable to play with vibrato that is inside the tone and not outside of the tone, whatever its speed. However, when the vibrato is inside the tone but too slow, its wave has a wah-wah effect. On the screen, you will see some vibrato illustrations from Dr. Clardy's book showing well-modulated vibrato versus vibrato that is undesirable. Second, where is the vibrato produced? There are a few schools of thought on the matter. Some teachers promote diaphragm vibrato, while others advocate vibrato produced by the throat. Through my research, it is clear that diaphragm vibrato tends to be the least favored. The diaphragm is an involuntary muscle, and it is possible to pulse the diaphragm using the abdominal and core muscles, but this has the disadvantages of 1. Being a lot of work, 2. Being difficult to produce as fast a vibrato as is often needed, and 3. Being difficult to control the vibrato width. Because of these disadvantages, producing vibrato through the throat will give the best results. This does not mean that it needs to be of the nanny goat vibrato, which is very fast and very narrow. For the flutist to avoid this nanny goat vibrato, one should strive to keep the throat and the chest relaxed and have adequate air support. Third, why do we use vibrato? Vibrato is one of the most expressive tools for tone development, projection, and phrase shaping. Without it, the flutist's tone is not as resonant and the music is lifeless. Fourth, should vibrato be taught, and if so, how does one practice vibrato? Flute vibrato can and needs to be taught. The vibrato does indeed sometimes occur naturally, and it is almost always wrong. As educators, it is important for us to teach students how to practice it properly through exercises in order to achieve a vibrato that is more controlled rather than sporadic. On the screen, you will see an unpublished vibrato exercise passed down to me by my professors. Let me demonstrate an excerpt of this exercise at quarter note 54. In the next clip, I am instructing a student on the same exercise. Notice that the setup is of me playing the first time and then the student playing the repeat. So for tone, let's do our vibrato exercise. And our goal is quarter note 54. I think a couple of weeks ago we might have been a little slower than that. Let's do 50, just to be safe. And then it's just going to be this Simon Says, I play, you play. And what we're listening for is like depth within the pulses. So that way they're nice and separated and they're not like smeared together. So just think nice deep ha's. Ha 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 ha. So we're going to start on G, okay, and go up to high C. Okay. right fingers and everything. You're keeping with the metronome. I love it. When I first started this exercise, I too was kind of like bobbing up and down. And it's easy to do that because you're thinking, ha, 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 ha. But I think by doing that, it actually slows you down. So think more linear rather than vertical. Okay. And then if you could, real slow before we do the metronome again, slowly. Can you do that on G? 6 pulses. Perfect. Let's do the 6 pulses again, but a little faster, but still hear the separation. Perfect. And then when you go to the next note, you're going to have to move your fingers a little faster while still pulsing. Perfect. And we are a little slower than the metronome, but you hear how you can hear the ha's?
Yes.
Okay, so shoot for that at the faster tempo. Let's start back from the beginning again, and we're thinking linear. The G for the 9 pulses sounds great. I'm hearing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, clear as day. And then I think when we need to change the fingerings to the next note, maybe you're concerned with the upcoming note more so than the actual like pulses.
Yeah.
So when you're sitting there on that G for 9 pulses, think ahead of the next 3 notes. That usually helps me a lot. Let's go back to high E flat, because I cracked that note, and you did too, so it must have been just a icky note. So we'll do middle G, high E flat, G sharp, E flat. And you have to really, when you get up to the top, you have to start really hammering out those pulses. I'm still cracking it. What can we do to not crack a note?
Think about where your air needs to be before you're playing it.
Okay, very good.
Instead of like reaching for it, think about going over it and sitting on it instead.
Cool. Yeah. So maybe I'm tensing up too much. Dropping the jaw really helps with that too. Just relaxing. So it's so easy to go. You hear that? Where it's just flat line.
Yeah.
But we still want to hear. Can you hear the 1, 2, 3? Okay, that's our goal. G, E flat. really good. Right after the G, the next note, whatever it was, I could hear the pulses, but then when you went G sharp and the very last note, it started flatlining again.
Okay.
And that's really easy to do. That happens very easily just because you're going into the third octave, and creating pulses in that third octave is harder because the frequency is closer together.
Yeah.
So vibrating in the third octave, that's why it's harder. Yeah, so when you're practicing this at home, just make sure you're really doing it with the metronome because it'll keep you in check. And then really ask yourself, am I hearing 9, 3, 3, and 3?
Yeah.
Yeah, really good. So your goal is 54. We're at 50. And what I like to do a lot of the times too is just
practice the big.
Yeah, and just really slow, just really, like I said, hammer out those pulses. Good. There are plenty of other vibrato exercises that one should utilize. For example, in Dr. Potter's vibrato book, she advocates practicing vibrato in quarter notes, eighth notes, triplets, 16th notes, quintuplets, and sextuplets. This gives the flutist a colorful palette of choices to choose from when making musical decisions. Although vibrato should be practiced as an exercise, the results should never sound contrived or planned, and an ideal vibrato should be flexible, following the contours of the musical phrase. Fifth, applying vibrato to the music. Now that we have practiced the vibrato, the last and most important step is how to incorporate it within the music. This is when the performer can get very creative with his or her vibrato choices. Typically, when deciding how much vibrato to use, one should consider the time period of the piece, the dynamic level indicated, and the character of the music. If these elements are in sync, then the performer's choice of vibrato will be appropriate and tastefully executed. Here is an excerpt from Poulenc's Flute Sonata, Movement 2, of some of my own vibrato choices. Notice how there are some notes where I do not incorporate vibrato at all. To help with my vibrato choices, I am taking into consideration the contour of the music, the dynamics, and the temperament. Of course, this performance is just one possibility. In conclusion, have fun practicing, and remember, allow your vibrato to be flexible and varied for heartfelt, exciting performances.